Hello, everyone, and welcome. Um, so it's been an interesting week energetically for many reasons. And just today, I was scrolling to Facebook and somebody posted, would someone tell me in bold cap letters from someone post, would someone tell me WTF, which is the acronym for what the F is going on? Please. And I started laughing so loud because energetically there is so much turbulence and contradictory impression that often this is what you're asking yourself internally. I don't know what's going on. Can someone tell me what the F is going on? Because you're trying to understand, you're trying to scan, you're trying to figure out, what am I feeling? What am I experiencing? Is it from me? Is it from the outside? Is it the outcome? What's going on? What's going on? And I have to say to you, I laugh for other reasons as well, because for the past 2 years, I have been given prompted by Spirit to write my second book. And I've been trying to write it. And every time I write something, within a matter of a month, when I go back to reread what I wrote, it becomes irrelevant because what I'm picking up, because it's an active and ongoing thing, is contradictory, or whatever I wrote about has shifted into something else. So it made it complicated. And it was not until maybe about 2 months ago that I began to experience something very different. And it had to do with the advanced students that are part of the Wisdom Council that are now in, and the group lock-in step work that we're doing right now, that has allowed me to suddenly have clarity. So I have been writing. I'm just going to start this week, chapter 5 of the book, and I have a lot more clarity as to what exactly is going on. And of course, to no surprise, the archons are playing a big role in this as the agitator, the invisible agitators that are behind the emotional turmoil and chaos that we're all feeling. Now, I want to say this to everyone, and I want to make you all at ease, because light workers have a tendency, when we talk about fallen angel and demonic forces or things that are not so pleasant or negative forces, they have a way of retreating in a denial of light by imagining that they are all for the Pleiades or from Cyrus and they're all light, and this is not them, it's somebody else. Let me just say this. The archons, or the mix their blood with the early when humanity just stepped out of the Garden of Eden, from Adam and Eve and all that, they then mix their blood with humanity. They married the daughters of men, and through this process, they completely destroy our genetic inheritance, which means that they change our DNA from being 12 strand to being 2 strand. What does that mean? It means that the archon are invisibly in your DNA. This is true for everyone on the planet, including me. So I'm saying this because I want people to have a baseline of truth from which we can operate. It doesn't have to remain the same that way, because in the process of ascendance, we will reclaim the 12 strands back. But we need to basically operate from a baseline of truth. No one is immune or has something special, because I was doing a class and somebody was talking about the Rh negative bloodline because it's so rare and we're different, and I'm not to be touched by it. This is BS. You have 2 strands of DNA. And because you do, you're still being influenced by these beings. and they're agitating both sides, and they're causing people to be, and it's a very interesting thing what they're doing. And I have to say to you, there is a genius, evil genius, there is a brilliance, there is a almost level of admiration, but weird, bizarre admiration for how well they are doing this. And the way it's done is by, the Gnostic Bible talks about the way the archon influence is through a process they call simulacrum. And this means that they will mirror or inflate an emotion or something and make it look almost like the real thing. But you have to pay very careful attention to realize that it is not. And if you're not paying careful attention, you will think that the feeling, the emotion, the experience is real and it is yours. I have had firsthand experience with this. And I've shared many of my emotional struggle for the past 2 years with you, but I'm going to share something very specific now. When I was younger, living back in the Caribbean, between the age of 10 towards about 14 years old, I used to have these sleep apnea, very disturbing experiences. And the experience would be that I would be in a very vivid dream, thinking that I was being pursued by some dark energy. And then I would find safety into my home and was seeking to get back home. And as I entered into my home and my domain, I'm like, I'm not back home now, I'm safe. And as I sat in the home and I'm nestling in my bed and I'm ready to go back to sleep again, all of a sudden, I begin to realize that there is a malevolence about the environment that I'm in, that something is not right. And then all of a sudden I realize, it's almost like I become lucid in the dream. I realize, oh my God, I'm still dreaming. I'm trapped in the dream. I need to wake up. I need to wake up. I need to wake. And I would make this Herculean effort to try to snap out of the dream that I'm in now. And then I would, oh my God, oh, I'm back in bed. I'm awake. I'm in my bedroom. And wait a minute, no, the malevolence is still there. I'm not awake. I'm still dreaming. And this sequence will go sometimes 4 to 5 times in a row before I finally wake up in real life. It's the most terrifying thing in the world. And if you have had that experience, it will mark you. It's terrifying. And thank God for me, but past the time of 14, when I was 14 years old, these experiences just stopped. But I can tell you, these things haunted me to the point that I didn't want to go to sleep at night because I was so scared I was going to go into it. And this is the Archon trying to trap your energy into the dream world, because they function profoundly and they're highly activated, because they're 4.5D, they're highly activated in the astral realm. And when you dream, you drift in the astral realm. So I'm saying this because I want you to understand, if I didn't pay attention in the dream and became lucid, I would have thought that I was in my room. Everything looks exactly the same. Everything, I mean, it was so vivid, but there was a sense, underlying sense of fear and malevolence, like something was not right. This is what the Gnostic Bible calls simulacrum. It looks similar, it looks like, but it is not. And this is what gives away what the Archons are doing. Now, if we fast forward this to what we're experiencing collectively today, a lot of times the way they infiltrate us is because they cannot create anything new. So they will use an emotion, let's say an experience is happening on the outside, let's say something is happening in the world, a storm, and you're feeling afraid, or some sort of financial insecurity or job insecurity, something you heard in your news, it's making you feel afraid of dying, COVID-19, whatever is coming, right? And as these experiences are creating these fears, they will then infiltrate, use that as an entry point, and then they will inflate it the same way I had to go to sleep and dream. And as I'm dreaming, they enter into the dream world and they create this environment to try to trap you. So they would take the emotion that you're feeling, and they would inflate it and make it into something by confusing you. And I'm going to tell you what the experience, very specific experiences are for me when they are doing this. And it is that all of a sudden I'm in the stream. I'm feeling an emotion, whether it's a fear or a panic, or I'm having an experience with somebody, and all of a sudden they're inserting in a voice of doubt. This is not going to be good for you. Run, run. Be afraid of this. Don't do this. Be afraid. This is not good for you. And so what happens emotionally is that I'm on a seesaw. There's a part of me that is in surrender, that knows that what I'm doing will be to the greater benefit, or the fear or the insecurity I'm having now about financial insecurity or food insecurity, whatever it is that I'm having, is actually being manufactured to trap me into survival and disempowerment. But there's another part, which is what they're inflating, that's so loud, that's causing me to emotionally become like a yo-yo. So two things are happening simultaneously. And there is so much doubt and confusion that you cannot even trust your gut feeling and your impression, because you're thinking now, the way they all can operate, the sensation, the simulacrum is so powerful, it feels like it is your gut. That you need to abandon this, you need to not do this, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't do it, it will take you further and further into experience more and more distress. I hope you're getting my drift. It's very, and the way that these doubts come in, they come in very strong and very powerful, as if it was a warning coming from God. I want to say this to you, that the true insight and warning that comes from God and your higher self are very soft, fleeting, and as if you blink, you're going to miss it. When the emotion comes in and it feels so strong and so powerful that if you don't follow it, some imminent disaster is going to happen to you, etc. That typically is simulacrum. So I see right now in the world stage people on this bifurcation that are experiencing emotional simulacrum on both sides. And there is nothing that I can do to prove to them, except for the book that I'm writing now. The book is called The Third Path, Finding Safe Passage into the New Earth. So that will be a way for people to kind of get the facts and navigate their way, get all of the information, and try to unmask the manipulation that these beings have been doing. So I'm writing. I have the clarity now. I'm writing, and the information is coming in, and I'm very grateful for this. But by the same token, there is a kind of like when when I see people make comments, I don't comment back because I don't want to engage on mass media for many, many reasons. I want the book to be finished. I'm trying to stay at peace, focus on what I'm doing, get it done, and then I can engage with people, then I can have conversation, and I will have a volume. I will tell them, I will refer them back to this, back to that, instead of having to litigate with people every point, okay? Because if I'm talking about the Archon and I have a chapter that's written about the Archon where the information is there, go to that chapter and look at the information, because I don't want to have to keep going back and explain this to you. If I'm talking about DNA manipulation, there's a chapter on this, go take a look at it. So I wanted to talk about this because it's very easy for the doubt to begin to infiltrate. Any questions, any comments about this? What I've said so far? It's quite a bit challenging to pick up on the nuance. But if you have ever had in the past 2 years that kind of like doubt, that internal doubt, where there is an inner prompting that says one thing and the exact opposite shows up, and the opposite is so strong, so powerful, and so overwhelming, you're experiencing simulacrum. You're being pulled and manipulated, and you need, and the way to deal with this is to do the typical query where you sit down, and I've done this in the past with you before. I've guided your meditation with this. You sit down and you ask yourself, when you think of the feeling and the emotion, the loud one, and the other ones as well. You think of the dichotomy, and you sit down and you breathe very deeply, and you ask yourself, is this sensation, perception, feeling, is this 100% mine? Now, the part of you that's still aligned with God will not lie to you. And if you wait, the answer will come. Now, let me also add here that the archons were originally created to serve us as guardian angel to humanity. So there is a coding, even though they emancipated and they're doing other things now, there is a part of them that is obligated to respond to you when you ask them a direct question. So when you are connected to this energy and you query and you ask yourself, is this 100% mine? The answer, the truth will show up for you. And if the answer is no, how much is it is mine? Isolate what's yours from what's not yours. So this is simulacrum. This is the part that belongs to me. The simulacrum I cannot remove. So what I do with the simulacrum is that I isolate what that sensation, that feeling, that doubt is, and I basically, because I know it's the archon, I basically connect wherever I see the energy on my field, and I say to that force, to that location, I see you. I confront them. I see you, and I have my eyes fixed on you. The archon only have power when we're in fear. When you are in your sovereignty, they will not stand in front of you. They will scurry and back away. Now, to make sure after that they are completely gone, you call upon Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. And you ask them to run there to basically, because those are the three archangels that God sent when they originally did what they did, to punish them. Michael, whose name means who's like unto God, to take their chief and all of their team and bury them under all the hills of the earth. Gabriel, whose name actually means the virility, the strength, or the power of God. The best way I can describe Gabriel is the ejaculation of God. He's the penis of God. In the biblical stories, every woman that couldn't birth, including Sarah, who was 90 years old, Gabriel went to Sarah and said, Sarah, you will have a child at 90 years old. The same with the Virgin Mary. Every time there was an annunciation to be done about birth coming in, it was always Gabriel. And in this instant, the book of Enoch talks about the fact that Gabriel was sent to destroy the children that the Archon created with human female. And I want you to understand what was happening in the story line of the book of Enoch at this point. There was a desire from God to restart the lineage of humanity by saving Noah, whose bloodline was still intact. This is why in the Bible, every time they talk about righteous blood or righteousness, the righteousness means 12 strands of DNA or redeemed blood. In the case of Noah and his descendants, they had not been yet touched by the Archon and their provocation. And therefore, he was still intact. And God sent Uriel to tell Noah how to build an ark and what to do so that whatever the flood he was going to send they would survive it and they would repopulate the earth. The same thing with by the way, the blood of Christ, the Holy Grail as being the Redeemer. It's because the blood, the lineage of Christ is the lineage of 12 strands of DNA. And that's the power of all Christianity. When you hear Christian or saying, by the blood of Christ, I banished you, I do this or that, by the blood of Christ, that blood has 12 strands of DNA. It's the redeemed blood. It's fixed design. So Gabriel was sent to destroy and actually to cause the children that were born from the crossbreeding between human and angelic being that took human form, the Archon, was sent to make them fight amongst themselves so that they would destroy each other as a way to stop that bloodline from propagating. And there was a desire to give humanity a restart. There are many things about, had I not read the book of Enoch, there would have been always a doubt in my mind as to why there are so many stories in the Bible about the Israelite or the children of God being sent to kill, I don't know, the Philistine, this group, this, that, or the other. And I never understood this kind of wrath, and I never understood it. It wasn't a blind, capricious God that was moving about doing all kinds of crazy stuff, whimsically doing. It was because of the desire to restart the proper bloodline for humanity so that we could still have the 12, because God created us for a very specific purpose. And that crossbreeding was derailing the purpose. It was altering it. Again, it's in the reading of that text that I had multiple aha moments. I'm like, now this makes sense. Book of Enoch was included in the Bible originally, but it was taken out in 325 in Nicaea. By the church fathers, it was removed. So there was because when you read chapter 6 of Genesis, when they talk about the sons of men marrying human female, and then the offspring that they have, and then the next thing you know, few verses below, God is sending Noah a message to build an ark. Next chapter, flood is coming. And there no explanation as to actually what happened. The book of Enoch expands all of this and gives you all this information. And as such, it illuminates so much more, and it makes me understand, aha, this is what happened, and this is why this was done. And Archangel Raphael was sent specifically to imprison the one fallen angel who taught humanity weaponry, battle, combat, all the things that were related to killing by war. So Raphael is the bane of this archangel, of this fallen being. And Raphael was asked to imprison him in the middle of the desert. So when you discover the part that's the simulacrum, you're going to call upon these three archangels to, and by the way, they were in prison for 70 generations. This is right after the flood, right before the flood, and then the flood happened, and they were in prison for 70 generations. We are way past 70 generations. Everything in the sacred texts, you have to take literally. So after 70 generations pass, which is what, almost like 4,000 years, once that happened, that prison gate is open. They were re-released, hoping that they had learned a lesson. No lesson learned, they started doing the same shenanigan. Because a few years, the case in point, if you're thinking about Genesis being one of the first book of the Bible, then the next thing that happened a few years later, when we're looking at David and Goliath, Goliath is a Nephilim, a product of an Archon or fallen angel marrying a woman and offspringing a giant. So they were back at it, and they've been back at it since then. In some ways, it would have been better if humanity were to believe in fallen angel. Now, I have to say here, I've said this before, this is not the Luciferian fall. Okay? This is a fall, this is the second fall that happened after humanity was outside of the Garden of Eden. And they started to propagate in the earth. It was a second fall. And it was very specific in the book of Enoch. It's 200 chief angel and their choirs, meaning their clique, their followers, the choir that they commanded, that were originally posted on earth to be the guardian and the protectors of humanity. And it so happened that human female had multiplied, humanity had multiplied, and there were a lot of fair, beautiful women, and they wanted to take them as wives. Now, I have to say to you, this is what the book of Enoch says, but it's not literally that. It's not just about the sexual act, although part of it was about lust, but what they're lusting after is something in the upper heart of humanity, of all of us, that the shaman from New Mexico, the descendants, the lineage that's the descendants of Carlos Castaneda, they call this the assemblage point. There is a light, a vibrancy that's very powerful, and that these beings who are typically very still and very stoic desire. And that's what they wanted. This is the reason why the dream I was telling you before, where they tried to trap me in the dream world between the ages of, I would say 10, 11 until I was 14. This is what they were trying to trap in me. Apparently, that energy must have been very powerful in me at that time, because I dreaded, I was so afraid of going to sleep. And this experience would happen maybe once every 2 weeks. I would pray to God before I go to sleep not to go into that space. No, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there, because it takes too much effort. And I would wake up literally screaming from the top of my lung, my mother would rush from her bedroom to come to see what was wrong with me. And I never told her what was going on because you keep thinking you're crazy because you're dreaming. You know, I'm a teenager. It was very hard to try to articulate what was going on. So when we are experiencing the simulacrum, if you can, because it's a state of confusion. It's a state of mental chaos where you have one concept and one idea that's very soft and very, you know, like a wave, like a soft wave, like the way the sea crashes onto the seashore. Another one that's very loud and very agitating and panicking. And they're conflicting with each other to the point that you don't know which one is true. You can't figure out which one, when you sit with yourself, even in meditation for several days, you can't figure out which one is true. The only way to figure it out is to go and do that Dantian exercise I just described now. Is to query self and ask, whatever I'm feeling now, whatever that sensation is, the panic or the agitation is causing, is this 100% mine? Ask a more abstract and bigger question. Not if which one is true, which one is not true, but is this feeling 100% mine? And wait for an answer. And aside from taking care of the simulacrum, you need now to work on yourself, because there was a fear or a knowing in you, a weakness in your spiritual psychology that has caused, that's now a backdoor that's causing the archon to have access to your emotion. You need to reframe that entire thinking and change the access or the false belief that's causing that door to be open. And that you have to isolate, because if, for example, what you're experiencing is revealing to you the fact that you're afraid of dying, that fear of death, you need to reframe it for you. What does that mean really in you that you're afraid of dying? What are you really afraid of? Is it not being in the planet? Or not having an impact in the world? You need to go deep. Are you afraid for yourself, for your family? What are you afraid of? Because that fear of dying is connected to survival. And survival is the access point, the central core of 3D. And you need to figure out how you're connected to this survival, because that's what they're using to get to you. Any questions, any comments? Any of you have ever experienced that kind of doubt, that kind of bizarre dichotomy I'm talking about? Wow, you're doing good if you haven't experienced this. Terrific.
I'm just struggling to get unmuted up here. Yes, of course. I think I can think of several cases where I had opposing emotions and feeling so confused by them over a single thought or idea or choice that had to be made. I am sure that probably everybody does, that has to have a crystal ball or whatever to see into the future to make the right choices that will be appropriate and safe for you. And the obvious one that was very strong and fear-based is obviously not mine. So that's very helpful as a guidepost to be able to identify. I do have a question, if it's not inappropriate.
Sure.
What I'm assuming is that God cannot destroy an immortal being, such as the archons, these fallen angels, but it could destroy mankind. Is that true? Because wouldn't the answer to these problems be to get rid of the archons?
No, what God did is that he tried to restart the whole thing, because the souls of men, the archon were already destroying men, because men were prior. The chapter 5 on Genesis talks about the genealogy. The old patriarch of the Bible lived in average 800 years. They were accomplishing all kinds of things. They were begetting people when they were 140, 150 years old. Okay, they were still offspring in people, sons and daughters. The issue is that after this happened, they were derailing, and actually humanity was dying much faster. Okay, no one ever dies. Remember this. Everybody is mortal, even men and women. We're all immortal beings. What God was doing at that point was to actually purge the influence in the bloodline, because it's the elevated bloodline to which we can actually be redeemed, right? And as far as the archons are concerned, there is still hope that they would learn, that they would achieve some higher level of ascendance. And I have to say to you, I had personal experience with this. Remember I told you before that there was a man that came to my classes that he after 2 months of class, we had a private session, and he told me that he was a high priest and he named a fallen angel.
Yeah.
That man turns out to have been, the name he mentioned turned out to be the name of the fallen angel that Raphael was sent to punish. Okay? When that man sent me in sheer panic, I have to tell you that whole session, because in a past life, I had battled a fallen angel. Okay? So the fear that the thought and the fear that was going through my mind at the time was that he's here to spy. I can't teach him. I have to ask him to leave. I blah 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 and so on and so forth. But I remained completely calm and stoic. When he left, as soon as I heard him go into the elevator in the hallway, I connected to my guide. I'm asking, so what do I do? What am I doing? And I remember very clearly what was said to me. I heard laughter at first, and then I heard my guide said to me, "What did you think that neutrality was? That only the light would come to you?" And then they said something interesting, whatever that. This man is not just a high priest of this fallen being. He's an incarnated aspect of this being that is battle fatigue, that is seeking neutrality. My head exploded. You could have seen smoke coming out of my ear. And I remember my response after that was, so what do I do? And they said to me, teach him everything and love him unconditionally, because he's seeking redemption.
Pierre, if I could add to this.
Yes.
Not my last job, but my prior job with the people I worked for that I went to Aspen. There were, I don't know how, they were like connected to fallen being, because I could feel that fallen being, big dark angel, in the house, in the property. I could see sometimes I could see them in their eyes.
Mm.
So, but in other ways, you know, they were just working on it, just like all of us. But my kind of uh, theory is that, you know, as far as our can influence as humanity, we need to learn discernment one way or another. We can be shielded and protected like kids, like babies forever. So part of me, I think it's like a lot of it is about understanding yourself, your shadow, learning discernment, and they just part of that process, right? Because it's either, you know, I'm just thinking if it wasn't them, it would have been somebody else.
Okay, this is it's interesting because I just wrote about a chapter on the Archon about this.
Mhm.
In a lot of ways, the Archon may think that they are winning, but actually, God and the higher power are using them as an accelerant to help us grow,
Right.
because they are the test for us to discover, to be able to discern between what's true and what's not true.
Right. Do know yourself, right? Your shadow, just like in across the board or the work that we do.
Yep.
And
Now-
then the other, oh, go ahead.
No, but the issue is that most of humanity, the average of the person on the planet, will not do this. They will not. It requires too much stillness, too much inner examination. People are not willing to go that far and that deep.
Yeah. At the same time, eventually you do it because you have to.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like when the time is right. And I think the other beings also, this is just my guess, but I'm thinking some of the beings that were so-called killed, they were so violent, like those that would consume, eat each other or eat everything. They must have been moved to an parallel reality so they could evolve safely, right?
Yeah,
In their own way.
yeah.
So like the killing is kind of, I don't take it literally. I mean, to us, maybe it looked like they were killed, but they were really just moved,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Ursula.
Sure.
Anybody else? Esther, Bobby, I see you unmuted.
Well, I certainly have experienced a lot of what you're talking about, and I am dealing with that internally, and I'm getting stronger and stronger with that. But I appreciate what your reminders and also helping me to go through this process. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I remember I used to have these dreams, and it seems like I was attempting to wake up, and I would just have difficulty waking up. You know, I would really have to struggle. And finally, I would wake up. I haven't had them recently, but, you know, it was just the struggle to come out of the dreams, And, you know, the more I struggle to come out, it seems like, you know, I'm still not out of it. And, you know, I had to just continue to. And then finally, it seems like I would wake up out of the dream.
But there is always a sense of malevolence, like you're trapped.
Yes.
Yeah. Fear and malevolence that you're trapped. I don't wish that on anybody. It's a terrifying experience. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's you know, and thank God I haven't had those in as I said, after 14, for whatever reason, they just stopped. They just stopped. And I'm very grateful for that because I was afraid of going to sleep. As a young kid, I couldn't articulate to my mother what was going on. I couldn't say it, you know. And moreover, what could she do? It was in my dream. You know what I'm saying? She can't be there in my dream trying to stop this from happening.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing.
Well,
I'm thinking, Pierre, maybe you got old enough that you connected with your destroyer, and they started protecting you. Your warrior,
Yeah,
your destroyer.
it's possible. It's possible. Something happened by the time I was 14. It just stopped.
Yeah,
But by
probably
the time
got
I
old
was
enough.
younger, because your soul does not completely connect to you until you are 13, 14 years old.
Yes, and yeah. And
Up
then
to
by
that
the
point-
time, then you have these other resources available.
Yes. It doesn't completely connect.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
to be honest, like I couldn't today. I don't know what I would do without my warrior, my destroyer, and all the help.
Yeah,
So that's another part of the puzzle.
yeah.
That's been it took some work and it took some work, but it's and some practice, but it's helping me now, big time. Mm.
but Pierre, it seems so. I mean, the story of the biblical story of the archons and how they came about, it almost seems like that story is writing itself today
Yep.
in so many different ways, in my opinion, in terms of just seeing, experiencing, and, it's almost like you don't know what to trust because, I mean, not here on this plane, because, everything is just so convoluted.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And before I segue from what you're saying, I just want to mention one more thing. In 2008, this is a parenthesis, before I forget it. In 2008, at the WESAC we did in the Catskill, Spirit, this is a Blue Moon WESAC, through my channeling, brought us the DNA reconstruction. If you're doing this recording every day, you're going to regrow back your 12 strands of DNA. Period. So we can end up being righteous and have the right blood while we're still on earth right now. And the moment you do this, the archons are purged from you. They cannot influence you anymore. So you should be listening to that recording on a daily as a way. It's on the website if you don't have it as yet. You can download it. You can listen to it on a daily as a way to cleanse your bloodline and make sure you plug all of these things out. And as a segue to what you were just saying, Esther, what's playing in the world right now remind me a lot. That's the chapter I'm writing now on the book. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is basically it's the Bardo Todol, it translates into the Great Liberation Through Hearing. The way the book is written, when you're dying, another person is to read you this text for 49 days in succession to help your soul transition and recognize the chaos and the confusion that will show up for you in what they call the Bardo. The term Bardo in their language, it's Tibetan, actually means a gap or a transition between two states. So if you're between life and rebirth, that's a Bardo. If you're breathing in and then you pause and then you exhale, that pause is a Bardo. Bardo is a gap. So the way the text was supposed to be done is that this person is going to read you the sacred text that will, all the stages are there, and they will tell you, today you're going to see X, Y, Z. You're going to experience this, that, or the other. And as you experience it, this is what your response should be. Because in the Bardo is the greatest opportunity to find what they call the luminosity or enlightenment. And it is the only time that enlightenment will show up. When we are in the regular state, the fixed state, either before or after the Bardo, enlightenment will not show up. Now there's the bardo of meditation, a prayer. There's a bardo. Right now, the planet is transition between dimension. There's a huge bardo that we're experiencing collectively. And that bardo that we're experiencing, all the stages that are outlined in this book, we're collectively going through them. And the stage we're going through right now, because the first stages are what they call the benevolent deities. You see illumination, you see great light, you see great enlightenment and experiences of great empowerment. And the light and the empowerment is so powerful that almost everyone disassociated themselves with the light by saying, this cannot be me, it has to be God or the angels, and I'm over here. When in fact, the book keeps saying over and over again, you have to recognize that the light that you're seeing, the great illumination, the luminosity is actually you. And until you identify with the light, you will not step on the wheel of death and rebirth. And for that to happen, you need to lose all self-identity. Because when you're going through the bardo, you still identify as your former life, as Pierre, as whoever you were in that lifetime. And you're seeing that luminous thing, that big thing that's everywhere. You're like, this cannot be me. And the book keeps saying over and over again, recognition and illumination are instantaneous. So failure to do this, and I'm not saying that we have to wait in the bardo of between life and death for us to do this. This is not the point. The point is that we go to bardo all the time. The pause between breath, the pause when you transition from normal state of consciousness into meditation, that's a bardo. There's opportunity, and as you go through all of them, the luminosity always presents itself. The opportunity to differentiate between your real nature and the illusion that you have of who you are as a small, minuscule, trapped and entombed being in the flesh. Because when you go into the bardo, you expand. You become your real self. And that real self at times can be so confusing and so terrifying that a lot of time we shut ourselves down. We're like, that can't be me. Or I'm going too far. I'm going to lose myself. I need to collapse back into who I am. I'm losing my identity. I was talking to somebody recently that said to me that with the expansion that they were feeling, they felt that something big was trying to shove into their small body. When you expand and you become this big, this is, all ascension and enlightenment requires for you to die. Master Jesus said it over and over again, you have to die to enter in the kingdom of God. And that's the death has to do with self-identity. It has to do with everything that you think that you are, you have to let it go. And you have to expand into a version of yourself that's everywhere. Now, I have to tell you, when you approach the first stages of ascension, and I'm going to be perfectly candid with you because the same thing happened to me. When you approach and you begin to see and you begin to accept that this vastness, this immensity that you're experiencing, that feels like it's everywhere, is actually you. There is a desire, a normal instinct and desire to leave the earth immediately. Because you begin to realize how small and limiting you are in the flesh. And there's a desire for you to expand and go into that great expansion. No one is going to fault you or judge you for choosing that. But before you make that choice, you have to ask yourself, because this is what happened to me. I was releasing and I was letting go. I was literally elevating and letting go of my body. And a voice came back to me and said, but Pierre, you have not accomplished your Dharma on earth yet. You're not done. And I realized the voice was true, and I came back into my body. I want you to understand the dynamic of what I'm talking about. And to put it in further context, this is the benevolent deities, the light, this big light, this luminosity. And the light is terrifying. It's too big. It's not me. And there's all this doubt it's creating. And then there is a dim light that you will see that will be a great comfort to you. And the book keeps saying, do not go into the dim light. Because if you go to the dim light, you're going to have what they call an unfavorable reincarnation. It's a test. Now, this is the first 7 days, 8 days of the Baldo. On the 9th day, the beat drum completely changed. You're now approaching a realm where your own fears that you had in your lifetimes will be projected in the experience of the Baldo. And they call this the malevolent deities. And the first experience is that you will see a demon with 3 heads and 6 eyes, and you will see him holding a skull, drinking with a cup on the other hand, drinking blood. You will see, and it's going to be as big as the sky, and his voice will be like a thunderclap, and it's going to be terrifying, and he's going to be charging at you. And as he runs toward you and charge at you, what you need to do, you need to remember at that moment that it is a projection of your mind. It's an illusion that is created to test you. And then you will see a dim light. And if you go into the dim light, you're going to reincarnate where you don't want to reincarnate. The suggestion when you're facing the benevolent deity, they said, even if he tried to attack you and try to pull and dismember you, they said, what you are right now, and listen to the term very carefully, what you are right now is a body of unconscious tendency on emptiness. A body of unconscious tendency on emptiness. And what you're experiencing as this giant being that's as big as the sky is also emptiness. And emptiness cannot harm emptiness. You will not die. And if you can calm yourself down, when you are approaching the benevolent deity, every day there's a prayer, specific prayer for that day. There's a prayer that the person who's reading it for you will recite, and they ask you to petition to your teacher or to your Buddha, to whoever is your master, your teacher. And as you petition and you say this prayer, and if you say it with sincerity, because when you're in the Baldo state, your consciousness is 9 times more powerful than when you're embodied. And if you say it with sincerity, the demon that you're experiencing will disintegrate. And there will be rose petal falling from the sky. And what behind it, you will see a Buddha that will invite you into enlightenment. And this is true of all of the other state of the Baldo until you approach the Baldo of rebirth. That you will experience every day a different demon. Terrifying, terrifying. This is what the planet collectively is going through right now. We're going to a collective experience of malevolent deities, where these things are so loud and so cacophonous, and you know, it's like somebody's blowing a cosmic trumpet. It's so loud, and it's trying to shake your inside and cause you to go into panic and to fear. And you have to pray and go internally, again recognizing that even in this world right now that's outside, that we're all collectively experiencing the bifurcation, whatever we're experiencing is emptiness. And we are nothing more than a body of unconscious tendency on emptiness. And the purpose of the work, and if my videos, everything else I'm doing with you, the classes and everything else, the purpose of us to become enlightened, instead of being unconscious tendency, is to become conscious tendency on emptiness. Because the moment that happens, you're enlightened. Because the moment you awake and you realize that chaos is the accelerant that's going to allow my true nature to precipitate out. Then the experience changes immediately on a snap. It becomes something else. What was malevolent transformed into beauty, into ascension, into benevolence. So it is for us to figure out how to, and of course the archons or the demons or the forces that are being animated to cause all of us to be at each other's throat, to battle, because we're being set up for combat. I don't know if you know this. 2020, there's going to be combat in the street. This is where we're headed. Aside from pandemic and everything else, you know, financial worry and food insecurity, there's going to be combat in the street. We're being set up for this. We're going to experience and know things that has never happened in this country, and for them, and the whole planet will experience it with us. They too are going to be subjected to the same thing, because the whole planet is being put to this crucible. And we are the herald that need to first become enlightened and then provide a doorway for others to follow. When I was part of the Rosicrucian Order years ago, this is when I was 17, they used to talk about that they wanted us to have conscious immortality. And the term is not the same, but it's the same idea. In the Tibetan tradition, in this Buddhist tradition, they are saying that we are now a body of a conscious tendency on emptiness. The whole universe, the fabric that creates everything in the universe, is the cosmic womb, which the Tibetan term as emptiness. In other words, the fact that it's everywhere. And when you're approaching enlightenment, that's what you're touching. When you see yourself with your true body, this is you're seeing this vastness, and you're seeing yourself everywhere, and you're so confused and disoriented. That's who you really are. And you need now to let go of the old identity, let go of yourself as a singularity of expression, and realize that the plurality, the identity of you being everywhere is who you really are. And then you will become a conscious tendency on emptiness. This is where the Buddhas are. All the Buddhas, all the beings that are enlightened, this is where they are. Now, you don't have to wait. I mean, you can do this in meditation. There's so many things that I've transitioned you into. Several of you are experiencing these states as I'm speaking to you right now, because I've had a private session with many of you. You're experiencing this right now because of the training I've given you. And that experience of the vastness and the emptiness is the cosmic womb. And it has so many gifts in it, so many abilities, so many that needs to be explored. And if you're still clenching and afraid and staying into your old identity as a singularity, you're rejecting the opportunity for true ascension to happen. Now, what happened is that once you have begun to accept this, and you see yourself as this vastness, your experience with the world is no longer linear. In other words, when something is presented to you, any new experience, you don't experience it anymore as a single cause and effect. You see everything like a fan, like a plurality of things or possibilities that open up in front of you. When someone says something to you, the way you respond to it, multiple choices present themselves in front of you, and you select which one is more appropriate for the person's consciousness. You're experiencing things completely differently. It gives you become highly socially intelligent and spiritually intelligent. You know things in a deeper and much more way, and where again, everything open up. Because you are not sticking to this mathematical formula, one cause, one effect, that linearity. Because if we are expanding into a higher dimension, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. We have ourselves to become multidimensional.
Up here, when you were talking, that was the word I was looking for, because I was trying to think, how to say some of the thoughts that jumped in my head, because you don't see things just one way. You see a lot of different things, and you touch so many things, and everybody's contribution is from a different perspective, and you just see things differently. So when Janice was speaking, and she said, why doesn't God just kill archons? And boy, so many things popped out, of my head at that point. But one thing I want to remember, it's energy. We're not talking about entities like we've been used to, the carbon-based entity. Okay, I want to get rid of you. I shoot you. Oh no, you don't shoot me. You don't get rid of me. You just drop that body, but the consciousness and the spirit of whatever it was continues.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could see what happened after the person fell, you would be utterly amazed. But we can't see that far, so we just think, oh, I killed that person. So think everything is energy, and energy can't be destroyed. You could only change its form.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else you said, Pierre, and something jumped out. Is it there's nothing new under the sun. It's like everything just cycles and cycles and cycles until the evolution occurs. Even if it's billions of years, there's nothing new under the sun. What else came to me? When first of all, let me just tell everybody thank you for your blessings and your energy, and know that it can be palpably felt.
Mm-hmm.
That came to me. My niece came to see me. It's my sister's daughter, and my sister's birthday was last Monday, November the 8th. And so then when my niece called me and said she was going to come, because I was not expecting her, when I saw her, I saw, you know, the progression of the generations. Like if my sister hadn't have been this, her father wouldn't have been, and she wouldn't have been, and who knows who's in her and what generations are to come. And so in the flesh, we really do have immortality, and it is the seed that goes on and on. The generations that Pierre was talking about, you live 800 years, 900 years, 300 years. So you're just talking about, what we're saying, 150 years, 60 years, that's nothing in the sense of what your potentiality is. And to tend the human back to its full potential is almost like what you were thinking in terms of making him immortal while in the flesh. What else comes to my head? Oh, my granddaughter said, not granddaughter, my niece, and she asked me if she could call me grandma. So I'm going to say that yes, she's my granddaughter, because I know that that's her mother. My sister speaking through her, so that she's feeling that continuity of me to her grandmother. So I just said, my granddaughter, she said, what would you like to do? She said, I want to do something for you. You have had so many things happen this week. Let's do something. And Pierre called, was it yesterday you called, Pierre, or the day before?
Yep.
And I was talking to her, and I had selected the primer for Ascension for her because she had so many questions. And so she was reading it, and then Pierre called. She said, you know this guy? So I said, yeah. I said, he just hung up. She said, you know him? And so when you were saying it was continuing with another book, it's really necessary, because now when you get there and you get some of these questions answered, you say in your spirit, well, what's my next step? What is the next progression from there? Okay, so when she heard that you really exist, it was like, wow, you know this guy. So then I had to brag on you, and I said, look at the front of the book. You see where he has signed, something to me, dedicated something to me there. So, wow, because she's waking up like she's waking up for the first time. She's come out of a total, very a Seventh-day Adventist background, and they have a lot of good things, but then they have so much dogma on top of the few truths that they've given. And something that's out of the church that, the church is giving you something, but they're putting so much other stuff on it. They tell you, putting off the old man to take on the new. But what old man and what new man are you taking? So think about that. We've all come through that part of that Christian experience. So you're not going outside of what you've been told to do, but you've given no instruction as to how to do that and how this Christ is going to manifest itself in your life.
Yep.
Okay, and now my granddaughter, she took me to the movies, and we went to see this picture called The Eternals.
Yep.
In line with what we're doing today, I would suggest you see this picture, because they're going to tell you this truth. Now, whether you will accept it and understand that this is about you individually, about the human race. Is it worth saving? And yes, there is something in the human that is necessary for all these other races. They identified the humans, they identified the deviant, they identified the eternal, and then they identified the celestial. And speaking to the all, I'm just going to say the all God, because I forgot what word they used for it. And I don't want to give away the picture, but you will see your lesson that you're having right now. You will hear it. If you listen for the truths that they reveal in this, and this is Hollywood. So I'm telling you, it's in your face. And you have a choice. Are you going to be a part of the world that is emerging, uh, uh, and oh my goodness, I don't want to tell you the story, but it was so exciting just to see all the things you're talking about right now in this picture, and all these different beings who had come from all these different places, and what they had to come to was that uni mind
Mm,
in order to harness this energy
mm,
to allow for this change.
mm,
So and my head is racing,
mm.
but I just want to just share those things with you, and thank you.
Thank you, Celidia. I'm on my way to see the Eternal. Don't tell me, because you know I love that series. I used to.
Yes,
I still have
yeah,
a comic books of them. Okay.
I
So,
I do too. I do too. I wish I could see this with you. Well, when you finish, when you see it, come please tell me, because you probably see things that I miss, because I want to go see it again. Because you cannot sit through movies two times like we used to be able to do.
yeah, yes.
You have
Back
to
in the
leave the
days,
movie.
yes, back in the days, you used to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yes, but this is something it's worth seeing more than once, because they touch on all these things that we're talking about, the ascension, the DNA reconstruction, and what is happening as the evolution and the multidimensional being,
Mhm.
and the special thing that's within the human, that what you would consider the archon as like a deviant,
Yeah. Yep.
but he has a place, and he has a place, and he has a role. And I don't want to give away anything, but I want to see if you get the same line out of there that I came out of there. Did you hear that? And my poor little granddaughter, she's like, Tanty, she said, last year this would have went over my head. She said, but with the things that we have talked about, and the things that I'm reading here with you, she said, I got some of that.
Mm.
I said, wow. So I'm saying thank you for the work that you have done, and the work that you will do, and the work that we are doing as part of, like, we're cases for you. We're cases. So you have these experiences to pull from for the people who have accepted and are willing to do and open themselves up in this way, uh, to put on that new man, and take off the old. And knowing that the being sheds personality that as you grow. You're not who you were when you were 7 years old. Your personality has totally changed.
Yep. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
you
Beautiful.
drop personalities as you evolve. And so it's not so hard to think of putting off the old and taking on the new. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Celidia. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Beautiful. I'll let you know, Celidia, when I see it, okay? All right. Anybody else?
Let us all know, Pierre, when you see it.
Say that again?
I said, let us all know when you see it.
Yeah. I will share it with you. Yes, absolutely.
In the old days, we could have got together and gone to see it together. That would have been an experience.
I know. That's a shame. Yes.
Yes,
We could have made a movie night. We all go together. Yes.
exactly.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll do the closing meditation. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly. Allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your head drop in the middle of your chest. It is as if you can only see the world from that part of your body. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your head and your heart sync with each other. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Allowing yourself to go into coherence. And realize that you can perceive energies (360 degrees) all around you. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Without objections, resistance, or fears. Notice what you noticed. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. As you become aware of any discomfort, unease that may exist in you, or outside of you. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all self-identities, I take a deep breath and exhale deeply and slowly. Let go of any singular perceptions, identities, existence that is holding you as an unconscious tendency on this emptiness. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. I release all attachments, fears, and control related to this. And I surrender into the great emptiness. And endless luminosity. I release all construct, ideas, emotional relationship, entanglement, and 3D accolade that are keeping me locked into a singular expression. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all emotional filial, religious, spiritual connection and affiliation that are holding me. As a singularity of expression. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. In the vast continents, the blessed morphogenic field of endless possibilities I exist everywhere as a conscious tendency in emptiness. In the rest of this expansion, may the stillness bring to me the healing, the repairs, and the redemption that I need. Let an endless cascade of perpetual renewal and healing. Ground into my entire being. And let this beacon of hope, freedom, and liberation be released to everyone in my circle of influence. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Janice. Everybody okay?
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all for listening tonight. I want to thank you for paying attention and for doing the hard work that's necessary for us to achieve this great work. I want to thank all my Patreon subscribers, all my YouTube watchers. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell icon, and like this video, share it with your friends so that we have a nice audience to listen and to participate in this great work. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Love you.
Good night, all. Good night.